Okay, right. So I'll do like a 15-20 minute introduction to the topic of how wealth is created, and then I'll take questions from the event chat. I'll read them out. Yeah, so let's start it. So this is like a long topic. I think even if you studied it in economics at school, it would be potentially a semester or at least some lessons. So this is really just going to scratch the surface just to give you an idea. But I cannot cover everything. So if you are interested in some of the topics you hear today, then please do investigate further for your own benefit. So yeah, but just managing your expectations a little. Yeah, so let's start with history. So for the majority of human history, 99% of the population did not have access to wealth. In particular, in this case, that means they were in extreme poverty, which is by today's measure less than $1.90 a day. So with inflation, it's not very much throughout history. And during this time, there was plenty of labor, there were plenty of slaves, there were plenty of indentured servants. However, only the last 250, 300 years have we seen exponential wealth. So what has changed? Why are we so wealthy today compared to 10,000 years ago, even 1,000 years ago, 300 years ago, or even 100 years ago? So let's see if I can answer that question a little bit. So what is wealth? Well, I'm not explaining it very well here. I'm just giving like the definitions to some degree. Wealth is production that is not consumed, the technical term. Another way of seeing it is, from a mathematical point of view, is time, production, and savings make up wealth. So don't worry, I'm going to keep explaining. Let's see if there's any questions so far. No, we're good. What wealth isn't, it is not a fixed pie. It's not a situation where if one person creates wealth, then it necessarily means that one person lost wealth. Wealth is not about taking, wealth is created. So I'll give a small example in the form of a story to help. Oh, sorry. So in the context of what I said with regards to time, production, and saving, I want to go into what production is. So I'll give a small or short story to help understand. So let's imagine many years ago a man is trapped or born on an island, and while he's on the island, he's trying to find food for himself. So there are fish around the island, and he tries to like go into the water and grab fish with his hands. He's not very successful, and the sea is very salty. It hurts his eyes. And one day he thinks, perhaps if there was a way for me not to get into the water as deep as I do, I'll have an opportunity to at least not be so tired, and the salt won't affect my eyes. So he goes to the forest area. He finds a branch. He sharpens the edge of it, and he decides this is now going to be a spear. And then he takes the spear. He goes to the water. He tries to fish some fish. He's more successful than he was before. He's able to catch. Oh, sorry, I didn't explain this part. So typically, when he catches things in his hand, he only catches one fish a day, which is just enough for him to maintain his needed calories, for argument's sake. But with the spear, he's now able to catch 2 fish a day, and his eyes don't hurt from the salt water. Over the course of time, he's a bit more and more successful, and he is able to catch more fish than he needs to consume. Now, on the island itself, there is another person that discovered how to grow wheat and how to then grind the wheat into flour. And he started, he didn't have enough to eat, and then over time he was able to produce more and more, and now he has more wheat than he is able to consume or make into bread through a little bit down the line. And those two people meet, and they say, well, I've got more fish than I need. You've got more flour than he said, I've got more flour than I did. Let's Let's exchange, and you can have some of my flour and I'll have some of your fish. So we have a situation here where there's two people on the island, both of them producing more than they can consume, and the other person has something of value to them, and they decide to trade to have a better quality of life, I suppose. There's a few points here. Some of them I'll go back to, but I just want you to notice that in order to increase the amount of production, the original man with regards to the fish had to think about a way of how to discover or find ways in nature to be able to increase the production of fish or increase his productivity of fish. And the thinking part is a very crucial stage in production and in wealth creation. And in the philosophy that I particularly follow, the thinking element is very important, and it has an emphasis on it. But the definition of production in this philosophy is production is the application of reason to the problem of survival. So I'll go a bit more into that later. But taking this short story and how people like address, and I believe it's a very basic story, but taking this idea of the story, I would like to read two paragraphs from a book, and maybe to explain production in a little bit more of an overview and not so much in a small example. This is a quote. Have you ever looked at the root of production? Take a look at an electric generator and dare tell yourself that it was created by the muscular effort of unthinking brutes. Try to grow a seed of wheat without the knowledge left to you by men who had to discover it for the first time. Try to obtain your food by means of nothing but physical motions, and you learn that man's mind is the root of all goods produced and all the wealth that ever existed. But you say money is made by the strong at the expense of the weak. What strength do you mean? It is not the strength of guns or muscles. Wealth is a product of man's capacity to think. Then is money made by the men who invent a motor at the expense of those who did not invent it? Is money made by the intelligent at the expense of the fools? By the able at the expense of the incompetent? By the ambitious at the expense of the lazy? So this is a chapter in the book called Atlas Shrugged, and then there was an element there where Francisco was talking about the root of money, or is money the root of evil? And within that, there's a passage about production. But there is an emphasis here that it's not just labor. There's a very big element in production, in thinking and looking how to solve problems. So how is wealth created in a more practical sense? Basically, entrepreneurs enter the market, and I'll try to explain like more or less how they operate. So in a very basic sense, an entrepreneur is a kind of bridge between, let's say, best way to describe it is like a scientist and the market. So an entrepreneur will use knowledge from science. They will discover either something of value, a certain need in the market, or an improvement on an existing product. Then they will organize materials and people, and they will produce marketable goods or services. So an entrepreneur is basically the bridge from the knowledge that we currently have in society, either by, for example, to mill bread in the example of the story, that's passed down as knowledge, or from scientists working on labs, finding a way of using that knowledge in a way that people need something in the market, something that produces something of value to them, organize a way to produce them, and then produces them. There are, however, actually, you know what? I'll take a short. Does anyone have any question at this stage, or should I just keep going? Wait a bit. No, okay. I'll continue. There are preconditions that need to happen for the entrepreneur to be able to do the things that they do, and those, starting by the first one, is basically liberty. We have to have a situation where the entrepreneur is has freedom from force, specifically force from other people, that they're able to operate somewhat freely, and they are free to think and free to be creative about how to solve particular problems. There needs to be property rights in that society, so so the entrepreneur is able to keep what they make. This necessarily means like either low to no taxes. With the idea is that if they produce something, if they take the risk to produce something, and then they are taxed heavily on it, it's a case where it's, if you attempt something, it's your loss, but it's our profit. So it may discourage people from even starting the endeavor. Low to no regulations, so they have again the freedom to try things out. An honest government with an objective rule of law, and a government that is able to solve disputes between supplier and themselves, and the government that ensures that there isn't a situation of political unrest or war. So there's a stability that allows people to come in and act as entrepreneurs and provide value to other people in the market. That is the precondition for this to happen. The entrepreneur was one way of producing of production. There is a second way of production, and it goes into what I previously mentioned, which was that production is time. Sorry, that wealth is time, production, and savings. You can have a situation that in a regular job you produce more than you consume, and you take that into savings now, and you want to then take the savings and grow it so it's worth more, and you do that by basically investing in the entrepreneur we previously discussed. So the entrepreneur is trying to start a new business. They seem to be doing okay, and you think, oh, it's a good idea for me to take this money, invest it in the entrepreneur. There is a sort of incentive to do that, because if you hold on to your money and keep it under the mattress, it will lose value just with inflation. So there is an incentive to do something with it. The same preconditions for the entrepreneur apply here as well. So, for example, if by investing there is a high amount of tax, that means there is less of an incentive to risk this capital, these savings, because you won't get as much return, and there is a risk of losing your savings should this entrepreneur fail. There is an expectation of getting dividends from this money that you give the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur will take your money or take these savings and invest in capital investments such as machines to be more productive. So there is a sort of like a feedback loop where the entrepreneur looks for things that the market finds of value, other people find of value and are willing to pay for it, and the investors want to grow their money, and they give it to the entrepreneur. They use this money to be more productive and produce more and faster and cheaper and better value, and it's sort of a continuous feedback loop. Unfortunately, with investing, you have to be a bit careful. I'm not going to go into great detail, but just talking about a bit of information. Usually, out of 10 businesses in the first year or 10 entrepreneurs that try to start a business, 6 will fail, and you would lose your investment. Your investment will be consumed. 3 out of 10 would break even and or intentionally like make it a sort of lifestyle business. So your investment will not necessarily go anywhere. It will just stay the same. And 1 out of 10 will succeed past the first year. So it is the case that there is an element of where the money should go, and who should you trust with your investment. Now, unfortunately, even in this situation, over time things change. There are new innovations that happen and come to the market. There are things that perhaps disrupt your business. There are situations where you become less efficient over time, or your organization becomes more bureaucratic, or you sunk a lot of money into a particular cost, and now you're afraid to innovate, throw it away and innovate somewhere else, innovate with it. And in general, businesses have like an average lifespan of 10 years, and then they die away. Even businesses that are on the S&P 500 have an average lifetime of 15 years. So it's very much the case that investors have to be a bit more careful where they put their money, or they may lose their investment. Taking some of these core things together, in the short story, there was a man who was fishing and a man who was growing wheat and milling it. There's a sort of network effect there. The more people you have in your market, the more the things that you can trade with, the more the people who specialize in. So I was thinking in the story itself. So for example, let's say a man comes and digs steel out of the ground, and he's included now in the people that trade. So people maybe can just take the steel and hold on to it because it's not perishable like fish are, and say maybe in the future they can trade this, or could be even gold, can trade this, and it's sort of a situation where the more people are participating in the market, the overall network effect grows. So more people producing in the market, the greater the productivity, and the greater the overall value of the market. So more people in it, the more market innovation, more suppliers, more customers, more wealth, more jobs, more productivity, and cheaper and better products and services. So stringing it all together, in order to like how wealth is created, there had to be like a few innovations on a few different. So how is it that we're more rich today than we are in the past? It's because we had to have a few different innovations. We had to have some political innovations with regards to property rights and the rule of law. We had to have some philosophical innovations in the context of liberty and recognizing individuals need the freedom to think and be creative. And as a result, we needed like a sort of political system or based on the philosophy of the removal of force from the society I'm not in a way, or at least like severely discouraging it. And as a result, we have economic innovation. We have economic innovations. We are optimizing our transactions based on this political support that we remove force from society. It's a sort of, the government is giving you a sort of insurance that you can trade and there won't be like a certain degree of violence, or we'll resolve disputes. So this optimizes transactions. They flow more easily. There's economic incentives based on the philosophy that you should deserve to keep what you want. And yeah, I think, and as a result, we have the network effect where we add more nodes to the network and they grow, and we have more and more wealth, and everything is like more and more accelerated, and we have exponential more wealth. So that was the introduction. I hope I didn't overload everyone. Maybe I should actually give the handouts or something. But if anyone has any questions, then I'll take them now. Or if you want to jump in. Does wealth need to be tied to a monetary unit? It does not need to be tied to a monetary unit. I think it's just easier to trade once it is, and I think that originally that was gold, and that was something that's physical, you can touch. and we seem to have lost that over the years when we've detached paper money to gold. Now it's just a sort of fiat currency, but it does help trading when it is based on like some sort of value of money. It just speeds up trading, similar to the way that we sped up transactions with political support. This is another way of speeding them even further. Does wealth need to be tied to a certain concept of value? If so, what would that? I mean, technically, yes. You want to have a situation where you accept this monetary unit, which is a sort of a value that you expect, and you don't want that value to go down until you go buy something else with it. I mean, this is more a question about money, which is a big subject in and of itself. But ideally, like something that stays stable and that you are able to expect to sell it for a particular value and then retain that value to buy something now or in the future when you need to spend it. So I don't have an answer what would that be, but I mean I would say gold standard would be good and more stable. Even though like you can mine it, it's still relatively stable. If there could be an idea of wealth beyond simple economic, like you know, we could say someone is wealthy when they are in health. Oh, I see what you're saying. So there is spiritual and monetary value. It depends on the, it depends on the individual in a sense because like two people can trade like on a value that they agree is a value, but like if you listen to a song, if you read a story of or another individual that you love is an immense value to you, that's something you should seek that value. And for example, I'll give a slightly different example, which I'm trying to recall. If you buy, let's say you're a very big Harry Potter fan, and if you buy a Harry Potter book, you get the book and you pay money. Let's say for argument's sake to J.K. Rowling, and you read the book, you enjoy it a lot. But from an economist point of view, money has gone down in your bank account, and that's all they see. And money has gone to J.K. Rowling's bank account, and now J.K. Rowling's even a billionaire, and that's to some people that's bad. But from your point of view, you don't regret buying that book. I mean, even if it seems like this perpetuates inequality of something. I think I'm remembering an example from an inequality lesson actually. But you read the book, you got immense spiritual value for it, and you are happy to part with your money to gain this spiritual value in a sense. But I don't think necessarily that you could easily trade that book. Perhaps like if someone else agrees to trade the book with you because they recognize it as spiritually valuable to them, but it's harder than money would be easier in this sense. I hope I answered the question. Can I just ask, like, just like a yes or no? Was what I said clear or confusing, or you have a question about the topics I read out? I guess this is a less exciting and spicy topic than Kyle's one. I would say though that the reason why I did do this topic is because I just saw a lot of people like discuss concepts in capitalism and economics, and it just didn't seem to have an idea of how wealth is created, and certainly in the area of or on the point of like a zero sum game and exploitation, and it's just not the case. It's like it's as if it's kind of like saying like when Christopher Columbus discovered America, like they came and there was like 6 apple trees, and they like split the apples equally across all the people on the boat, and then like 100 years later skyscrapers fell out of the sky and landed. It's like it's not how wealth is created. How we don't distribute wealth, we create it. And the creation itself is the creation of value in and of itself is immense value to society. It's valuable to the consumers, it's valuable to the people to the suppliers of the businesses who and helps them going, like the whole network effect. It's like a series of interlocking parts. So for example, if you would look at it in a negative way, like if you would disrupt this, like in a sort of stagflation or mass unemployment or some sort of event where, like for some reason, lots of companies or lots of consumers just kind of leave the market very quickly, it's extremely disruptive because it's all like a flow of things. And if that flow is disrupted, then it has a very negative effect on the overall network or market. But once like you have something like this up and running, it's like a well-oiled machine in a sense that kind of lives on its own, and all the individual nodes in the network make decisions for themselves based on price signals and what they want for their own lives and how they want to optimize certain things. So it's kind of like an adaptive complex, like a biological adaptive complex system to some degree. Yeah, if I could explain it that way.